So when you find yourself in a hole, at what point do you stop digging? So here's a question that should make every tech investor lose sleep. What happens when a company loses $3 for every one single dollar it earns? What happens when your flagship product's user engagement has dropped 22% in less than 3 months? And what happens when your own co-founder goes on a podcast and calls your core technology, and I quote, slop? So I've watched OpenAI dominate the headlines for 2 years straight, but when you actually crack open the books and look at what's happening behind the curtains, the picture's way uglier than anybody wants to admit. So I've watched hype cycles come and go, like the dot-com dreams turn to dust or crypto castles crumbling overnight. Now with bankers and VCs who pump the AI bubble suddenly whispering warnings about economic crashes, who's really to blame for the mess? OpenAI, the spark that ignited it all, is hiding a pile of issues so deep it could fill a graveyard right now. But everyone's skimming the surface while the real problems fester below. So we're going to dive in today and talk about what OpenAI's grip is slipping and ask yourself if this is just a stumble or if it's the edge of the cliff. Now, the same people who made AI hype their entire personality are now quietly warning that when this bubble pops, it's going to hurt. So whose fault is it exactly? Well, let's dive in today and take a look. All right, so the AI gold rush is officially hitting a reality check. The same pattern I saw with crypto, NFTs, and the dot-com bubble boom. So it's happening again right in front of us. Big promises, fancy demos, but when you look under the hood at the actual numbers, spending $3 to make $1 doesn't last very long. So the AI rush is facing some harsh truths, and OpenAI sits right in the hot seat. The musical chairs is going, and everybody knows that eventually the music's going to stop, right? So echoing the red flags I spotted in Web3 before things tanked, or these indicators scream that trouble's brewing. So we're going to jump into some clear signs that OpenAI's dominance might be fading. Now, businesses are ditching OpenAI's tools for competitors popping up left and right. And from what I've built over the years, with one player losing ground this quick, it's often become the others nail when others nail the reliability better. So Gemini 3 has absolutely stolen and eaten OpenAI's lunch. But we're going to talk a little bit more about OpenAI today. So as we look into some of these different numbers here, we can see that numbers for OpenAI in the enterprise space is dropping from 50 to 25%, while Anthropic's has climbed to over 30%. So let's take a look at this graph here because I've got some pretty cool graphs to go through and take a look at these here. So Anthropic has overtaken OpenAI in enterprise large language model API market share. So this enterprise large language model API share, and you can see that OpenAI has dropped, in the last 2 years has dropped from 50% down to, around 25%, right? Anthropic's has climbed, and the one who's really then shot up in the very recent time, even since this graph, has been Google. Google is absolutely eating OpenAI's lunch, and I believe this has crossed over in the last couple of months. Now, we look at every other major banker, venture capitalist, and financial pundit that was screaming about AI last year, and now they're warning about an AI bubble, right? But here's what gets me. None of them have actually looked under the hood of OpenAI itself. Now, again, as always, if you're watching this and you've got some thoughts on it, please leave a comment down below. It's really the best compliment you can give me. So make sure you hit us up down in the comments down below. Now, let's check some of these other articles that we've got here, right? So this one said you have no idea how screwed OpenAI is. It's almost funny how the world has only one cotton onto the AI bubble, right? So this guy's talking about it, and he brings up a couple of interesting points here. He was like, since OpenAI has announced that another $500 billion in AI data center deals over the next 5 years with AMD, Broadcom, NVIDIA, and Oracle. So OpenAI is doubling its planned expenditures over the next 5 years. But to utilize a data center, you need AI developers, people collecting data, people sorting data, people beta testing new models, and such. That is why data center operation costs are only around 40% of AI companies' operational costs. So in other words, this $1 trillion planned data center investment could cost OpenAI $650 billion in annual operation costs by 2029. I mean, the numbers just aren't really adding up for OpenAI here, right? There's just so much money that they're spending to make money. Now, there was this announcement here. OpenAI did a major reorganization with $135 billion Microsoft stake after months of talks with California and Delaware Attorney General before approval. They signed a new deal that keeps Microsoft as the exclusive cloud and API partner until an independent panel verifies OpenAI's claim of AGI. So OpenAI has to come and say, hey, we have AGI, and an independent panel has to verify it. while locking in Microsoft's rights to OpenAI's products and models through 2032. See, essentially, Microsoft renegotiated this, and they were the ones holding all the cards. So OpenAI just had to agree to a whole bunch of stuff that I'm sure they didn't want to. But Microsoft now owns 27% of OpenAI Group PBC, a stake valued around 135 billion, which cement tight operation and integration of OpenAI tech into Microsoft products, while OpenAI gains more flexibility on partnerships. So OpenAI can have some partnerships, but until then, Microsoft owns a huge chunk of them. Now, exclusivity ends after AGI is verified, but Microsoft keeps usage and ownership rights for everything built pre-AGI. And its rights also cover post-AGI models through 2032 with safety guardrails. I mean, so this is what this is going to talk about in this next chapter, and OpenAI published this to give information on this, and this is like what the real take is. Now, ultimately, they say as we step into the next chapter of our partnership, both companies are better positioned than ever. This is one of those interesting ones where I think that Satya Nadella is keeping Sam Altman on a leash. And I think this 27% is just enough that he can be a thorn in Sam Altman's side, because that 27% is what keeps Microsoft still able to have a pretty good set of control on things. Now, there's no way that OpenAI will make $100 billion in revenue in 2027. Anthropic has the best coding model, Google has the best model overall, Meta has the best researchers, and Microsoft has the most money. So what does OpenAI have? The worst CEO. I loved this quote. This one kills me. So, somebody's trying to project that OpenAI's revenue will be $200 billion by 2030. Not a chance. Not even a chance. There's no way. Because even on this scale, this would be saying that they were going to actually produce, somewhere near 50 billion next year. There's no way they'll be anywhere even close to that. Now, let's talk about a couple of other things. OpenAI co-founder warned of an AI agent crisis. Agentic engineering is the way forward. Now, he's, again, who they're quoting here, he says a decade. That's how long Andrej Karpathy believes it will take before AI agents truly work. In his recent Business Insider interview, the OpenAI founder, member of and Tesla Autopilot visionary, didn't mince words. AI agents just don't work. They're not multimodal enough. They don't remember. They can't plan, and it will take about a decade before they work. Now, I actually think he's being generous because remember, this is the person that joined on with Tesla with their FSD group. Now, as you've just recently seen, if you haven't, go back and watch my video. Huge fan of Tesla FSD. I love it. I think it's the closest thing we actually have to a real neural network and real FSD. But that being said, how many years did we get? Oh, you'll have it by the end of the year. Oh, it's going to be fully autonomous by the end of the year. It's still not totally fully autonomous. And I use it. Like, you can go see my stats. They're over 90%. When I'm driving, I have FSD driving me well over 90% of the time. But that being said, it's taken them, over a decade to get to that. So that's with all the power of that. I think we're going to see much more than a decade to get to this. So I think this is optimistic. Now, the next part is that you see that OpenAI is definitely starting to lose. You can see that Gemini, and this was before October, right? So this was a reporting up to October 10th. Since that time, November and December has seen Gemini's numbers double. So I saw recent numbers here that were showing that Gemini's numbers have doubled. I wasn't able to find it for this article tonight, but this, we're seeing Gemini has absolutely doubled. So we're seeing that Google is definitely eating OpenAI's lunch, and they are absolutely in trouble. So the information analyzed OpenAI's financials and found is staggering. The first half of 2025, OpenAI made $4.3 billion in revenue, but posted a net loss of $13.5 billion. Again, that's $3. That's spending $3 to make $1. So that's incredible. And I'm not making this up. This is the actual math. So they're on track to lose $27 billion by the end of the year. That's nearly double what analysts predicted they'd lose all of next year. But here's the number that really should scare investor. For every dollar of revenue growth, OpenAI is spending $7.77. That's not a sustainable business. That's a money furnace. Now, Microsoft's latest SEC filing shows OpenAI losing roughly $12 billion in the last quarter alone. That's just in 3 months. So OpenAI won't be profitable until 2029 at the earliest, and they're projecting to rack up $44 billion in total losses from 2023 to 2028. Now, According to Menlo Ventures' latest report, Anthropic has officially overtaken OpenAI as the top enterprise AI provider with 32% market share. OpenAI dominated the enterprise market through 2023 with 50% share. Today, that number has dropped to less than 25%. That's a 50% drop in 2 years. Enterprise spending on AI has doubled to 8.4 billion, and Anthropic is capturing the majority of that lion's share. So here's what really stings for OpenAI. In coding specifically, Anthropic's Claude holds 42% of the market share. That's more than double of OpenAI's 21%. Now, these numbers are pre-Gemini 3, and I think these numbers are growing even more because the number I have here is from October, which says that Google has climbed to 20% of the strength with the strength of Gemini. And since the release of Gemini 3, I think we're going to see those numbers double more than again. I think we're going to see them continue to run away with this. Now, third-party data shows that ChatGPT global downloads are down over 8% month over month as of October. So even more concerning is average time spent per user in the US has dropped 22% since July. That's a massive engagement cliff. And it's not that people are getting more efficient with prompts. Average sessions per user are also declining. I mean, people are just using it less. So Sam Altman brags about 800 million users, but only 5% actually pay for a subscription. And those paying users represent 70% of OpenAI's recurring revenue. So the experimentation phase is over. People who tried it, the novelty wore off, and now they're either moving on or switching to competitors like Gemini or Claude because their corporate's paying for it, right? When your flagship consumer product is both losing market share and losing engagement, that's a death spiral waiting to happen. So Andre Karpathy, one of the original OpenAI co-founders, went on the Dwarkesh podcast and absolutely torched the AI agent hype. His exact quote was, they don't work, they don't have enough intelligence, and they're not multimodal enough. They can't do a computer use and all this stuff. He called the output of the current AI agent slop, and this is a guy who literally helped build OpenAI from the ground up. So Karpathy says that it will take a decade at minimum before AI agents actually work as advertised, not 2025 and not 2026. So he warned the industry is making too big of a jump and trying to pretend like this is amazing when it's just not. And maybe because they're trying to fundraise. When the guy who helped create ChatGPT is telling you the technology is overhyped, it's probably time to stop and listen to him. Now, so let's break down what OpenAI is actually up against right now. Anthropic has the best coding model, Google has the best overall model, and Meta has the best researchers. So OpenAI's first mover advantage has totally evaporated, and now they're fighting a multi-front war, and they're not in a position to win. So here's what I think is really going on. OpenAI is trying to become so interconnected with major companies and governments that they have to be bailed out when things go sideways. So they've got deals with NVIDIA, Oracle, Broadcom, AMD, Amazon, and more. And they're trying to make themselves indispensable to the entire tech ecosystem. So there's talk of a $1 trillion IPO valuation for 2026 or 2027, and that's double their current worth. But the problem here is that their current structure is not going to allow them to do that, and they will get stopped. The strategy mirrors what we saw with banks in 2008, become so interconnected that letting you fail would crash the whole system. America's GDP growth is increasingly tied to a handful of tech giants, and OpenAI has deals totaling over $1 trillion with half of them. So this isn't a technology company building a sustainable business. This is a company building insurance policy against failure. Now, again, if your company needs help connecting your systems, reach out, because here at Startup Hack, our specialty is connecting your systems to help you, your company work to maximum efficiency. Check out startuphack.com/Spencer, and we'd love to help you out. Now, OpenAI's own research team has admitted something devastating. The hallucination problem might be unsolvable through scaling. And this is what I've been saying on this channel all along. We've hit the point of diminishing returns. There's not new data to come up with. You can't just scale your way out of this problem. The company's $1 trillion bet is based on the assumption that adding more data, which is just going to get worse as we get to more, and more compute, which becomes unscalable, will fix reliability. But their own engineers are now saying that that's not how this works. These aren't small errors. I've seen AI confidently invent court cases, fabricate statistics, and generate completely fictional sources that sound perfectly real. For enterprise use case where accuracy actually matters, legal documents, financial reports, medical information. This becomes a huge deal breaker. So after 25 years building software, I can tell you that a system that works 95% of the time but fails catastrophically and unpredictably the other 5%, that's not usable for real serious. And that's the thing, that's saying 95%. These are actually finding a hallucination in the 20%. That means 1 out of every 5 times it's going to hallucinate something. So the magic trick works in demos, but production deployments are a completely different story. And that's where the money is. OpenAI expects computational costs for models training to hit $9.5 billion annually by 2026, just for training, not including inference. Research expenses are projected to grow by another $5 billion on top of that. And we're talking about costs that make movie studio budgets look like petty cash. Personnel costs are exploding from $700 million in 2024 to $2 billion in 2025. They're burning cash on salaries at an unsustainable rate. So here's the kicker. Their current gross margin is only 41% compared to 65% of the average cloud software startup. And the economics of the fundamentals don't work. So ChatGPT, used to represent a large portion of the market, but that is disintegrating quickly, especially as Gemini is nipping at their heels. Now, this isn't talking about the regulatory tsunami that's coming, because the EU AI Act is already in effect, and China has its own regulations, and the US is starting to wake up and is probably going to end up with a lot of AI governance. OpenAI's aggressive data collection practices and training on copyrighted materials is starting to catch up to them. MIT research showed that over 95% of enterprise AI pilot projects are failing to deliver promised value. And then MIT released a report a couple months later saying that 40% of jobs can be taken. But I would ask you, if 40% of jobs can be taken by AI, why aren't they? The narrative is shifting from AI will transform everything to, okay, but what specifically can it do to justify the cost? So OpenAI needs businesses to keep believing and help keep spending, but the results aren't matching the promises. So when the music stops and companies start cutting AI budgets that aren't delivering, OpenAI's revenue share is going to fall flat, and they're going to land like on their butts on the floor. Now, curious to hear what you guys think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I love to have a great discussion, so make sure you leave a comment down below and make sure to like and subscribe. Here at Startup Hack, we love to train software developers as well as build custom software solutions for companies. So reach out if we can help your company. Here's some great information about our services.
Hi, I'm Spencer, a fractional CTO. With over a decade of executive leadership and 25 years in software development, I've transformed technology teams and products for businesses just like yours. As your fractional CTO, you get the strategic guidance of a seasoned technology executive without the full-time commitment, perfect for companies ready to leverage cutting-edge technology without expanding headcount. My team at Startup Hack has already built advanced AI agents for small and medium businesses, automating complex workflows and delivering advanced ROI to human workflows. We specialize in creating custom software that connects your systems into a single coherent technology ecosystem. Our development approach focuses on tangible business outcomes. For one client, we developed AI-powered workflows that cut days off of human processes. For another company, by connecting multiple systems, we reduced processing time to increase their ROI by over 75%. We don't just write code, we architect solutions that scale. Whether you need cloud system architecture, data integration between legacy systems, or custom AI agents that automate your unique business processes, my team delivers results that exceed your expectations. Having led technology for a lot of companies and launched 7 successful brands of my own, I bring battle-tested expertise to your business challenges. Our specialty is turning technological complexity into business advantage. So if you're ready to harness the power of AI and custom software to drive your business forward, let's connect. Together, we'll build technology that doesn't just solve today's problems, it positions you for tomorrow's opportunities. Technology leadership, decades of experience, AI powered. Reach out today and we can help you. Check out startuphack.com/Spencer.